we are a city on the rise that will never lose our small town values. You belong here.
I love my hometown, and I feel like I belong here, and I want everyone to feel that way.
All of the work that we do is all encapsulated under our strategic plan that we have. We have 6 values in that strategic plan.
We are bold.
Corona has the latest equipment, always optimizing for our citizens.
We are humble.
Corona, serving our city with pride.
We are driven.
Come on and join us, guys.
We are honest.
I am planting some trees, and I'm 100% having fun.
We are kind.
You're happy today, huh? I'm so happy for you.
We are a team.
Hey, we love it. Thanks for coming, everybody.
All right, everybody, we're 100% having fun. Except for Steiner. We're going to kick off with the Pledge of Allegiance. If our Assistant City Manager, Brett Channing, can lead that, that would work.
Everyone put their right hand over their heart. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, this time we're going to call the meeting to order. And if anyone wants to speak, they need to address the city council by filling out a blue card. It's a speaker card. It's in the back, or the clerk has them. Please observe a 3-minute limit for communications. Once called upon to speak, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Up first is communications from the public. This portion of the agenda is intended for general public comment on items which within the council's jurisdictions that are not listed elsewhere on the agenda. There's a whole bunch of it, but it basically says state of 3 minutes. Ms. Edwards, do we have any blue cards?
Mayor, we do not have any speaker cards for communication from the public.
All right, so glad I didn't read all of that. Agenda items, number 1, 6th Street Corridor and Downtown Projects Update. This is going to be a tag team effort by Tucker and Ellis. Sounds like a law firm. I wish you two the best of luck.
We okay? Good. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of council. I am excited to be here with you to talk about the 6th Street Corridor and the Downtown Revitalization Plan and provide you some updates and look for your guidance and direction on some of the proposed projects we're going to undertake in the downtown. The ask of you tonight is that the council provide direction and feedback on the proposed 6th Street Corridor and Downtown Revitalization, the projects themselves, the funding plan, and the timeline. So we'll go an overview of what we're going to talk about today. We'll give a brief history of how we got here. We'll talk about some of the current challenges in the downtown and along the 6th Street Corridor. Propose 6 categories of solutions, how we can move the needle. We'll talk about 9 catalytic transformative projects proposed on the corridor and in the downtown. We'll talk briefly about the funding plan and the timelines, and then we'll provide some recommendations for you to consider. Many cities have tried to revitalize their downtown over time, and Corona is just like that. A variety of plans have been proposed. The most recent plan was proposed in 2015, but the efforts have stalled because of a lack of a funding plan and an implementation plan. So there's great vision going in how we could revitalize the downtown, but no way to get it done. In 2021, the city adopted a strategic plan after significant community feedback and input, and identified the downtown and the 6th Street Corridor as key component parts of revitalizing the city and areas of interest. And so in October of 2022, after significant community outreach and stakeholder involvement, the City Council adopted the Downtown Revitalization Plan, including some key catalytic projects that would help move the needle in the downtown. So as we're moving forward with some of these projects, it's time to seek high-level direction from Council on these proposed projects, the funding, and the timeline. So that's where we're at in 2024. Just to be clear, the areas we're talking about, the 6th Street Corridor extends all the way from Maple on the west end of town to the Temescal Wash just past Rimpaw on 6th Street. The boundary that you see here was the council adopted boundary for the downtown revitalization plan. And so when we talk about 6th Street corridor that extends east to west through the city, and then this is the DRP boundary. In the downtown, we face some significant challenges. They're probably the most prescient, the most salient, the most visible is crime and homelessness in the downtown. That's not the only problem, though, or the significant challenge we need to overcome. The lack of a downtown core is one of the key concerns that a lot of residents have posed, that it doesn't look or feel like a downtown. Over time, we've had some blight concerns about businesses, upkeep, and facades, aging infrastructure, including roads. And then when you go down there, there's a lack of a feeling of sense of place, that you've arrived in the downtown, that it's memorable, there's something to do down there, including a lack of community events. There wasn't really very much to drive energy into the downtown. So just like everything, when we have a challenge, we need to match that with a great solution. And so we're going to talk briefly about 6 categories of solutions that we're pursuing in the downtown to improve that area and revitalize it. The first among those are enhanced safety efforts. And credit to the visionary leadership of the council in adopting the homeless strategic plan and allocating significant amount of resources and efforts to change the center of gravity for homelessness and homeless support from the downtown to the Harrison Hope Center. And that shift, in addition to additional resource allocations from the police department, have created a much safer environment to work in the 6th Street corridor and in the downtown. Another solution is to emphasize redevelopment at 6th and Main. That virtually everyone, when we talk about the downtown, they focus a lot on that corner and that intersection. And in the downtown revitalization plan, that was a crucial component of bringing energy and life back to the downtown. And so working on redeveloping that area is crucial to success in revitalizing the downtown. We've also pursued additional solutions to these challenges with aesthetic enhancements, making buildings look nicer. The council recently approved some facade improvement grants for business owners who want to make their buildings look nicer, to refresh the facades. An additional solution to revitalizing the downtown is major infrastructure investments, making the roads better, making the buildings look better. Additionally, some capital improvements in parks and in recreation areas. So one of the solutions is to improve some of those facilities at our parks, including City Park, which was identified in the strategic plan and in the downtown revitalization plan as a key catalytic project for the area. And then bringing people there for more community events, bringing our residents to the downtown to show them what's available down there, to breathe life back into that area. And so those 6 categories are broad ways we're addressing the challenges in the downtown that will bring life back there. I just want to note as well, the downtown has some really amazing places to eat. It has my favorite burger joint, has amazing Mexican restaurants. There are a lot of things that our residents probably don't know very much about. And as we bring them there and we give them those experiences, they come back. And I firmly believe that. And we always get asked, this is like high on everyone's mind, people ask us, what are we doing in the downtown? And there's a lot of community interest on that. We've undertaken a significant amount of projects, both planned and ongoing, and we want to talk about those so that the public can get a sense of these holistically, and we can get some guidance from the council and some direction on the council on how to proceed. Today, we're going to talk about 9 large projects to help revitalize the downtown and the 6th Street corridor. We're going to talk about streetscape enhancements, adding medians and trees along 6th Street, a renovation of the historic Civic Center Plaza, redevelopment of the North Mall into a thriving, vibrant mixed-use development with retail, residential, and commercial components. We're going to talk about City Park, about revitalizing City Park and the importance of bringing people there. We're going to talk about gateway signage as a way to welcome people to our community, installing iconic downtown signs to help people feel that they've arrived in the downtown. and to create moments where people want to take selfies and know that they're there. We'll talk about our efforts in the South Mall, acquiring and redeveloping properties there with public and private investment. We'll talk about our efforts at 6th and Main beautification, redesigning that intersection as in the heart of the downtown in the center of the circle. And then transforming 6th Street to a more pedestrian-friendly, walkable downtown that feels like a downtown, that'll help complement those redevelopment uses. So those are the 9 projects we're going to talk about, but there's more too. So we'll talk about that too. The first project that we want to talk about is a proposal to enhance the streetscape along the 6th Street corridor. That's to add medians and trees and landscaping to improve what that corridor looks like, to make it more beautiful and inviting. Once again, the 6th Street corridor largely is Paseo Grande to the Temescal Wash just past Rimpau. This is a picture of Lancaster, California in 2010. They decided to undertake streetscape enhancements and a transformation of this major boulevard. It cost $11.5 million, and this is what they got. So they invested $11.5 million to create a center median where people could park that would be just right through a similar corridor that we have in the 6th Street corridor. They estimate that it generated $273 million in economic output since the transformation. I think this is pretty amazing. I want to point out a couple things really quickly too. So on each of these project slides, you'll see the name of the project, a brief description, the proposed timeline, and where we're at in that completion. So that's for your reference. These 9 projects have that same setup. The second project is to renovate the remaining portions of the historic Civic Center that were not improved in the 2015 renovations. That's to say, add a HVAC system for the building, repair, renew aging windows and doors, upgrade building components, the AV system inside the theater, and make this gem, one of our historic gems of a building, into the Performing, Visual, and Culinary Arts Center for the community, as described in the strategic plan. You'll see progress on the historic Civic Center Plaza soon as we demolish the police building. That was approved by City Council just recently, and that's scheduled to take place just after our summer concert series ends this summer. So you'll see the plaza start to change a little bit based on previous council direction, but this renovation could also include landscape enhancements, trees, and beautification of the site as a whole. This is the project number 3 is the project I think everybody is very interested in. In fact, it has so much visibility that this picture, this conceptual drawing, is featured throughout the downtown revitalization plan because effort there is so crucial. This proposed project is to continue to acquire properties and redevelop the North Mall into a thriving, vibrant, mixed-use development with retail, residential, and commercial components. This is probably one of the most important catalytic projects in the downtown and a key to the success. Unfortunately, there poses a very significant challenge in that the property ownership on the site is widely distributed and it makes it very difficult to coordinate efforts for redevelopment. That's to say, the city owns a number of properties and has acquired these over time. And we own the parking lots. But previous development efforts from the private sector and previous city efforts to create a cohesive development on the site have been very challenging. And so we're seeking council direction today whether to continue a piecemeal approach to redevelop this site or to pursue a comprehensive wholesale redevelopment of the site in the future. Project number 4 is City Park revitalization. That's, we've talked a lot about and I'm really excited about. These are some conceptual pictures of community gathering spaces, ideas about water features, recreation, and walkways. This is very exciting. But this project, as we've talked about, is to build a purpose-built community center in that space to make that the concert, festival, recreation, and celebration center in the downtown, to drive people there and get them to experience that historic park. We've had a lot of feedback from the public, the commission, and the council on some proposed design ideas, and this is the design idea that was most favored. It's called the Crown. It builds a community building around a community canvas where we can host events. I think it's pretty cool that it itself is a crown on top of the community canvas. I think that's reflective of our history and our name, and I think it's very symbolic about who we are. At both ends of the 6th Street corridor, you see these signs. And gateway signs are important for many cities. Many cities take great pride in these. They post them where residents and visitors enter, and these signs say, "Welcome to insert city." And we are proposing that we refresh or update these signs to make them more visually appealing, welcoming, and a recognizable entry point into the city. They should make you feel like you belong here. And our signs have seen better days. Here's an example of one in Laguna Niguel, but just the contrast in brightening and enlivening those entry points will draw some city pride, and residents, I think residents will feel much more pride in the city as they enter into our 6th Street corridor in the downtown if they see something a little bit upgraded and refreshed. And that's it, y'all. No, I'm just kidding. Project number 6, our iconic downtown signs. So we've talked about the 6th Street corridor and gateway signs, and these are slightly different. This project would install iconic signs that announce your arrival in the downtown. And we're proposing that 2 signs be installed at 6th and Grand, east and west, to sort of delineate you are now inside the circle. Whether or not they look like these big banners, or they're a post sign, something that says, this is a historic place, this is a place that is different than the other parts of the city. This has a unique character. The 3rd sign we're proposing to install at 6th and Main between the North and South Mall properties in the heart of the downtown, near the center of the circle. And once again, these are places where people have moments. As you cross in, imagine you're driving from the west, the Historic Civic Center on the west, on 6th Street, and you come to Grand. And as you come to Grand, there's a sign that says, you are now in the heart of the circle, and you are in a different place. And then aesthetically, there are upgrades to the landscape, and it feels different. I think it brings community pride, and it changes the way people behave in that area. The 7th project is the South Mall redevelopment. Once again, this has been ongoing. This project is to continue to acquire and redevelop projects in the South Mall to complement the other redevelopment projects. And particularly, this block has been designated to be an entertainment and, a dining and entertainment block. The picture that you see on the screen is the conceptual design for the repaving and the refreshing of the South Mall parking lot. Changing the way that this is laid out and improving the landscaping and vegetation in this area just will simply change the dynamic of people who visit there. Just like the North Mall, the South Mall has a variety of different property owners. So the lab owns a couple of parcels. The city also owns some parcels, and then some of them are also privately owned. Investments in the parking lot and in those aesthetics will draw more private investment to that area. I wanted to point out as well, the city acquired the 525 South Main, which is the 99-cent store. And thank you to your visionary leadership on that, because you'll see right now, if people were to look on Planet Bids, there's an RFP available for someone to bring a dining and entertainment use to that building that will complement the other uses that were being pulled in by the lab. And so if we have these designated areas where we have some public investment to change the usage and some private investment will create a catalyst which will drive additional investment in that area. And so changing that use is a significant change in how that people will interact with that space. And you add that to the parking lot redesign, and you create a much more inviting place where people will want to come. Project 8 is the 6th and Main beautification. And the City Council, you all allocated some ARPA funds to beautify 6th Street. And this is, once again, at the center of the beautification efforts in the downtown. So the enhancements at 6th Street and Main will include a redesign of the streetscape, including medians and trees, renewed sidewalks and walkways, additional parking and usages that will help connect the North and South Mall properties, but will also create the landscape that will drive people to the center of the circle. Additionally, on this project, we're proposing to install an iconic feature at the center of the circle that will, once again, create a moment for people to take a selfie. They'll be drawn down there. And to be frank, y'all, I am kind of a nerd. How cool would it be to have a location right at the center of a circle, which is really weird in most cities to have, where you could be like, I am at the focus of the circle. This was really cool. And if we installed something iconic down there, I think that would also be a great place for people to visit and take pictures.
Mr. Tucker, is the center of the circle the center of 6th and Main?
The focus of the circle is close. It's close to there. Yes?
It's located, there's a pin in the street between the sidewalks connecting the North and South Mall. So it's where the old Main Street would have gone through. Okay. You can find that today still out in the pavement.
I was just curious if it was the center of 6th and Main. Are we suggesting some sort of something in the middle of the street, 6th and Main? It's a traffic nightmare. Main Street. Okay.
So can I answer that question? So as we redevelop this and talk about lane changes and providing a median in that area, you could put something in the median that will come between the North and South Mall and the sidewalk where that traditional center is. That we would have the space for that.
Yep. Thank you.
I was just going to say, I think there'd been I had suggested many years ago about, since it is the center, about some, an obelisk or something that denotes that as the absolute center. But
yep, I think that's one of those things that we could pursue if council directs us to do that. The 9th project that we're proposing is a transformation of 6th Street between Grand and Grand into a more walkable downtown. That's to reduce 6th to a single lane of traffic in each direction, widen the sidewalks, add parking, install new medians and trees, signage and other streetscape enhancements to create the sense of being in a downtown. When we talk to participants in the DRP community sessions, they often said, it's dangerous to be on 6th Street. We want to be able to walk places. We want to be able to hang out and be in a space where we could get a bite to eat and we could visit somewhere, but have that connected sense. The picture that you see here is La Jolla Boulevard in San Diego. And they undertook a similar transformation process in 2010. And what they did was they went out and started this process because La Jolla Boulevard on average had a speed of about 40 miles an hour. And the residents couldn't walk side to side. It was 68 feet in distance to cross the street. They went to what we're proposing, which is a road diet, improving medians and trees and signage and sidewalks. And it looks like this. It reduced the crossing distance from a pedestrian from 68 feet to 14 feet. They added 30 parking spaces on this stretch of the road. It reduced traffic collisions by 90% and had a 30% increase in retail sales. More importantly, what happened at La Jolla is it connected both sides of the street. And if you try to cross 6th Street now, it's a 64-foot crossing distance in most places. So the approach that you could undertake by transforming the street on 6th Street here would be similar. We can anticipate similar results that took place in La Jolla. Now, going back to the first example I showed you, which was Lancaster, Lancaster did something similar. They didn't just install those medians and trees in 2011, but they converted 9 blocks into a road diet, just like this. They had the median. They went from 2 lanes in each direction to 1 lane in each direction. They reduced their average speed from 40 to 15 miles an hour. They had a 78% reduction in pedestrian collisions, a 38% decrease in motor vehicle collisions, but these are things that are really important. Ready? A 57% increase in retail sales, and 119% in revenue from the area between 2007 and 2012. These are significant changes, not just in the roadway, but in how people behave in those spaces. So converting this into a more walkable downtown will affect how people behave in the downtown. Here's the more, y'all. Not only are these 9 projects or what we're proposing, we're doing significant other projects. For example, one of them that we're most excited about is some additional private retail development that's coming in at the northwest corner of 6th and Main. And this will provide a new grocery store, restaurant, retail, and more. But it's a significant private investment on a key corner in our downtown. The city's undertaken some strategic property acquisition to identify and pursue ownership of properties with strategic value to the city. I mentioned earlier the 99-cent store. By converting that use into a dining and entertainment usage, that will help improve and grow the economic engine in the South Mall area. Because of the council's leadership, we're also allocating some monies for facade improvement grants. These are grants that business owners in the downtown can use to improve the look of their buildings and refresh those. The police department has increased enforcement along 6th Street, and they've seen significant changes in crime in that area. Also, they have a team dedicated to reach out to businesses to help business owners to reduce crime and increase safety at their business locations. This year, virtually every road in the downtown revitalization plan boundary area will be repaved or resurfaced. That's the picture with the red lines. So this year, those roadway improvements will come in. It may seem small, but it improves the mobility of vehicles, but changes the way that people feel about the pride in their area. With nice paved roads, resurfaced roads, things look cleaner and nicer. A couple of years ago, we also won a grant to improve alleyways. So we have a green alleyways program. We're going to use permeable asphalt, which is cool. The water comes and it infiltrates down in the groundwater. We're going to repave some of those alleys with permeable asphalt, install lighting and signage in the alleys. As part of the downtown revitalization plan, there were some design guidelines. We're also this year we're updating the downtown specific plan to codify those design guidelines and create the rule structure around how downtown gets refreshed and rebuilt and revitalized. It'll change the look and feel of the downtown. Using our new brand, we're also creating a unique character for the downtown and creating a downtown brand. That downtown brand will help you feel like you've arrived in the space and create character in the downtown and re-emphasize that you're in a different place. We've also invested a significant amount of improvements, capital improvements, and programmatic improvements at the senior center. And I think you've all been to events, members of council, where that senior center is active and vibrant. It's a place where our older adults come to recreate. And so we're making some facade improvements there. We've made some other capital improvements that have allowed the expansion of the senior lunch program. And that place is hopping with activity. Additionally, we've made capital improvements at Victoria Park, installing a really desirable amenity at a park in the downtown, having a splash pad there. We're also proposing to do some capital improvements inside one of our historic buildings at that park to make that more usable, to improve the bathrooms, to make that building at Victoria Park up to standard. We spent a lot of effort on enhanced community events Large-scale community events bring energy to the downtown. We spend a lot of time doing those, and they're fantastic. Going to those, to the summer concert series, and I don't know about you, but the things that I heard about closing the street on 6th Street were fantastic. The residents thought that was amazing because there were food trucks, there were opportunities to recreate and see the historic Civic Center. It just brings life to that area. Additionally, we're installing playground equipment and shade at Sheridan Park. Once again, it may seem like a small thing, but it's a place where families can go and recreate and have an enjoyable experience right in the downtown. So members of council, there are a lot of projects going on in the downtown, including the 9 that we've proposed. And I want to just show them to you a different way. So if we take the downtown area and the 6th Street corridor, and we start mapping the investments that we're making in the downtown, it looks a little bit like this. We're investing at 6th and Main to do some improvements and some beautification. We're proposing to transform the street along 6th Street to make it more pedestrian friendly and walkable. Installing iconic downtown signs at those gateway portals to the 6th Street corridor and in the heart of the downtown. We're reinvesting and redeveloping the South Mall, acquiring properties and encouraging the use of dining and entertainment. We're investing in City Park, a community building, a splash pad, an aquatics facility, all sorts of amenities that will draw people to that area and bring life to that historic space. We've made improvements in the senior center, including programmatic expansion. We're installing facilities at Victoria Park and renovating that building. Sheridan Park, playgrounds and shade structures. Retail development at 6th and Main. And continuing to acquire and redevelop the North Mall into a thriving destination. Investments in the historic Civic Center and renovation, installation of gateway signage to welcome our residents and our visitors to the 6th Street corridor. And we're proposing to do streetscape enhancements to make that corridor more beautiful and aesthetically pleasing. So all in all, when people say, what are the proposed changes that will take place in downtown? I think when you see them a little bit more visually, you can see the amount of effort that we would like to invest into our downtown. The biggest question I think on everybody's mind is, how do we do this? Because cities have been at this for decades. And so we are able to learn a lot from what worked well and what did not work well. Not too long ago, a resident down here came to this podium and suggested that we do something bold to transform the downtown. They cited Riverside as an example. The Riverside Renaissance started in 2008, and Riverside spent $1.5 billion in parks, roads, and buildings in their downtown. As of 2020, they've seen an additional $1.2 billion of private investment in that area. I just want to quote this because I thought it was great. Nathan Freeman, who was the director of economic development at the time in 2020, said, "The idea was to take 30 years of infrastructure needs and do it in a couple of years." It was very successful, he said. It laid the groundwork for a lot of private investment. And so with that example, I want to move to the next sort of phase. In revitalizing downtowns, one of the things that we have learned is that no single project alone will revitalize Corona's downtown area. So guided by the DRP, we're proposing a strategy that combines public and private investment intended to serve as catalyst projects to create the environment to spur private investments that will encourage growth in the area, that will start an economic engine that we will see in dividends as they come in as increased sales and property tax, that will encourage more growth in the downtown. It'll kickstart that process. These 9 catalytic projects, we have an estimate that will cost about $200 million. But that does not include any of the offsets that we know or could forecast. Some of the known offsets we'll talk about in a minute. Sale of city assets like the Circle City Center, some competitive grant funding, ARPA funding, increased sales and property tax, sale of city assets, and the financing and interest and other charges. So one of the things that I think you should take great pride in as members of the council is that your good financial stewardship has created significant opportunities to do this sort of investment. Specifically, when Measure X was passed, council's direction was to allocate those funds to directly impact our residents. And in that process, you've set aside reserves, specifically for Measure X, to fund big investments like this. When the council moved forward with financing our pension obligation bonds at an extremely low rate, it also created the scenario which we got a AA+ credit rating, the second highest credit rating possible, and used market opportunities to reduce our long-term costs on these obligations. Additionally, we've gone after significant funding from grants to fund some of these projects and other projects throughout the city. All of this good financial stewardship is allowing the city to move forward on these projects if they so desire. I wanted to give you an example of what this might look like. The graph on the right is the total bond capacity of the city at $3.9 billion. The next column over is our current bond capacity with our existing obligations. So our existing debt obligations are about 6% of our capacity. If we were to move forward with bonding on these projects, it would consume about 3% of our bond capacity, and we would retain 91% of our bond capacity in case of emergency or other significant investments that we wanted to make in the future. So these good financial decisions that the council has made have created opportunities to utilize our debt capacity and other things to construct these improvements and create an economic engine in the downtown. So as we noted before, a capital funding plan is really crucial for this. So the projects are listed in the column on the left: park improvements, city park, gateway signage, beautification efforts, transformation. And on the column on the right, these are the known direct offsets. I want to point out that these direct offsets, like $3 million in CDBG funds or $8 million that was allocated to ARPA, those are known. Those are the things that we know we have assets worth these dollar amounts, or we know that this revenue is coming in this way. Those offsets total $86 million. That doesn't include any increased sales tax, any increased property tax, any additional estimates that may come in the future. Those are just known offsets, which leaves us with about $114 million in bond financing in order to hit that estimated $200 million. We also need to talk timeline. We have been on a slow and steady approach where we invest $5 to $10 million a year in key projects. If we were to pursue this path forward, it would take 20 to 30 years to do all of these improvements. There's some pros to this approach in that it does not incur any additional debt costs. It gives us a little bit more time to secure grants. It gives us more time to analyze and the ability to pivot based on the changing environment. The cons start with, it hasn't worked thus far. And it hasn't created the desired momentum that we want to see in the downtown. It also takes 20 to 30 years to see significant returns on investment. And as you all know, the state continues to provide us mandates on how we have to spend our money, so we have shrinking discretionary spending over time. We also have seen construction costs go up over time, and that would lead us to meaning that some projects may not get done. And we are likely to see a slower return on these small investments over time. The staff is recommending an accelerated timeline with $7 to $8 million per year in debt service to accomplish these projects between 5 and 7 years from now. This takes advantage of the city's strong financial position. It ensures a comprehensive approach that it all gets done. We build the economic engine in the downtown that will be self-sustaining. It creates momentum that we anticipate will spur additional renewal and private investment. It accelerates that redevelopment. and revenue growth in terms of sales and property taxes. Additionally, we benefit from more efficient construction processes. Instead of bidding each project block by block or one off at a time, we can design and plan all of those in one continuous unit. Also, if we were to go out individually for bonds for each of these separate projects, there are bond costs that are rolled into each one of those. And if we wrap it all into one bond issuance, that reduces the costs. This accelerated timeline does have some cons, that we have debt service costs, and that we have a little bit less time to secure some grant funding. If we were to pursue an accelerated timeline, these are how we anticipate the projects would come to fruition. In the first year, in 2024, we will see a grand opening at the South Mall. That's already underway. That project will have a brand new parking lot, and we have some of those businesses already coming in. But we'll start, and we're working on city park designs. We're continuing with those other projects, but a significant amount of work happens in design this year. A small amount of design happens next year, but construction really starts next year. And that continues as projects come to fruition and completion in 2026, 27. By 2028, the vast majority of these are complete. We'll continue with North Mall construction. Transformation of 6th Street is complete. Any HCC renovation would likely persist into 2028. By 2029, we anticipate the North Mall would come online. So, members of council, our recommendation is to proceed with the 9 proposed catalyst projects, utilizing an investment plan that uses reserves, asset sales, grants, and financing up to $125 million to fund these projects up front, and then pursue an accelerated timeline to build an economic engine in the downtown and encourage redevelopment efforts from the private sector on this accelerated timeline. Once again, as a reminder, members of council, our ask tonight is that you provide direction and feedback on the proposed 6th Street Corridor and 6th Street Corridor and downtown revitalization projects, funding plan, and timeline. And I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
All right. Thank you, Tucker. Do we want to go with questions first or public comments? Public comments. Okay. Sylvia, are there any blue cards?
Mayor, yes, I have one speaker card for this item.
Joe, do you want to speak?
Good evening, good afternoon, I should say. So yeah, this is great. Another afternoon meeting with a $200 million item where tonight, I'm sure at the legally required meeting, we'll be discussing like whether to go with a 3-page or 4-part NCR for tree trimming requests. You know, like at the regular meeting, something that really consequential. You know, why can't you do this in the evening when people can be here? Why not? I can't think of anything more top of mind that you should be talking about at an evening meeting besides this. You know, so you'll be bumping up against the closed session, just like usual, you know, where you could just move the meeting back a half hour, do all the presentations, and then take this up afterwards. Take it up at an evening meeting. You could stay here and talk about it in front of the people that are here as late as you want. I mean, what else do you have to do? I mean, I don't. I just don't understand that. I don't get it. It's interesting to see the road diet thing. Again, it's going to be a shock to people. You know, you go and say, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. I can totally see the reasons why, but again, it shouldn't be something that should be just we're going to get feedback and whatever. I mean, a tacit vote is still a vote, and the fact that you haven't even decided to move or not move on a performing arts center. I can't think of anything else that'd be more relevant to the downtown than do at a performing arts center. But you haven't moved on that. You know, any downtown center, the only draw I see for downtown is whatever's going on at the South Mall. It sounds pretty cool. You know, it sounds like a pretty good deal, but I don't know that that makes it downtown by itself. I'm sure a grocery store is not a sufficient draw. I haven't heard anything else that's a real actual downtown. Like, hey, let's go downtown. There's a grocery store. We have grocery stores all over the city. You know, maybe it's a cool one that everybody likes, but I don't really think that's going to do it. And so, you know, until you decide, and as the person that Mr. Tucker was referring that's talking about making a bold move downtown, a grocery store is not it. A performing arts center would be a bold move. That would be the city planting a flag, not just like, well, we're going to buy a bunch of stuff and then flip it to a developer, you know, to build a bunch of apartments, to build basically Metro at Main version 2.0, which is kind of what I'm hearing about the North Mall. That's kind of what it seems like, because I'm not seeing any bold, the city's going to plant a flag and the city's going to build something. And the downtown Riverside revitalization most certainly didn't start in 2008. It started in the late 80s, early 90s when they decided that that was downtown. That's when it started. Every single city function happened in that space. It happened, you know, right around the Mission Inn. All the activity started there. So, you know I know there's a few people that don't believe I was actually there, but the downtown, the Orange Blossom Festival, all that type of stuff was all centered right around there. Car shows, every event, concerts, the city put all their efforts down there. They owned everything and then leased everything out to people for cheap. That's how it started. It wasn't necessarily, let's just flip it to Tri-Point or whatever. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Joe, I believe you were there. Marta?
City Council, hello Mayor. Marta Cortez with Eduardo's Mexican Restaurant on 6th Street. So I'm in the area that you guys are talking about revitalizing. I have a question for the audience. How many here have a business in the downtown? So we have 4 people. The rest of them don't know this is happening. They don't know about the study session. I don't know why we weren't notified. It's not just a regular study session. This is a big project. And I really think that we should be notified when these things are happening so we can participate. So I have an ask, you know, next time you discuss this, please notify us. I know my neighbors didn't know. Nobody knew. The only reason I know is because of Joe. Joe told Bobby, and Bobby was the one that got us here. But otherwise, half of us wouldn't be here. So I'm not going to comment on the project itself because it's a lot to take in, and you know, I'll probably have comments later, but not today. But anyways, hopefully you guys can include us in the discussion maybe next time. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Marta. Going to close public comments and head on over to Tony.
Thank you, Mayor. My first question is, and this is something because I haven't been here my entire life, but how do we, what criteria do we use to designate 6th and Main as downtown?
Again, the downtown revitalization plan boundaries were adopted by the city council as part of the downtown revitalization plan. And so there's a downtown specific plan, which was the planning district. That was enlarged with the downtown revitalization plan and adopted by council.
That part I'm familiar with, but what criteria do we use to designate that as the downtown? That's the part I don't remember.
So some of that is the age of the buildings and the historic character and the events that took place there. But all of that was part of the community feedback that was taken into consideration as we worked on that boundary.
Okay. On project number 2, you had called it a visual performing and culinary arts. Explain the culinary part to me.
Sure. So the Parks and Recreation Master Plan outreach had a number of respondents who said that they would really like to have cooking classes and they would like to be able to do that as their form of art and engagement. And so that fits really well at the Historic Civic Center because also we utilize that space for events. And so having a facility that could, say for example, during our community conversations, those caterers had nowhere to prepare their food and bring that out for any of those community events. So that would be a smaller portion of that site, but to recognize that that's one of the art forms and that people enjoy.
Well, I'm a fan of the culinary arts, but I just don't know where we could put a kitchen.
That's a great question. So there's a working sink behind the community room, but obviously the scope of any historic civic center renovations would be up to the purview of council to make the decision on what they would like to pursue.
Okay, and then you said on Project 1 in Lancaster, beautiful downtown Lancaster, they invested $11 million, and the retail output was like $200 million. Is that
$273 million? Yeah,
$273 million. And then similarly in La Jolla, what were those numbers one more time?
Let me look at it again. So I want to clarify as well. Project 1 in Lancaster involved installing medians and trees in that space, but also included a road diet.
Yep.
So they benefited from both. So let me grab that number for you. La Jolla had a 30% increase in retail sales.
Okay.
And then retail sales increased in Lancaster by 57%, and revenue from the area 119%.
Okay. Mayor, are we doing questions or just comments? Or both?
Both. Just
okay.
Flush it out.
There was a slide towards the end, and part of it was, the first part of it was no single project alone. And when you said that, the first thing that popped into my mind was our homeless strategic plan. And I say that because if we would have just done a shelter for our homeless strategic plan, I don't think we would have had the success that we had, or any individual component. I think the success of it was the entire component. And so I look at these 9 projects, and I think that those, I couldn't add any other projects that I thought of. I couldn't think of any other projects that would add to the downtown revitalization. So I was actually very happy with those projects. And I'd like to know a little bit more about the investment plan and how we're going, what does that look like for our yearly budget. But I like the projects, and I don't know how much I believe in the 5 to 7 years for completion, just because I've seen how some of these things go. But I certainly think that Corona deserves better than 20 or 30 years. So those are my comments for right now.
Wesley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Justin. I appreciate the presentation. I have a lot of questions. Let's see. First, I'll start maybe helping answer one of Tony's question about the what is downtown? So in the downtown revitalization plan on page 10, it says that it generally is centered on the intersection of 2 major commercial thoroughfares, 6th and Main, within the circle. That's stated in the plan. The key goal of the DRP is to create a better blend of land uses, improving connectivity, the downtown core, Metro Main, better activate civic spaces. And City Park, Historic Civic Center, to complement, expand, retain existing businesses that are important to the local economy, along with the major commercial retail corridors around Main and 6th. On page 48, it talks about what's important, what people see as important. Number 1, Corona Mall. Number 1, Corona Mall, repeatedly, over and over again, pages and pages. In fact, I went back and I looked at every year the council members put together independently. We all put together a list of what we think our priorities are. We didn't do it. There was a couple years we missed, but I went back and I looked at 2020, 2021, 2024, and 6th and Main, South Mall, North Mall, Corona Mall, 6th Street, cleaning up 6th Street, downtown redevelopment. Going back to 2020, 2021, Corona Mall, downtown revitalization, 6th Street, Corona Mall, Corona Mall. 2024, North and South Mall, 6th Street beautification, North Mall, South Mall, 6th Street beautification. Very consistent that what we presented. And And I think that's great. I think it shows, this plan shows that, that we're taking that and what, what we've said, what the residents have said. In fact, I know a completely, unscientific poll. I know you hate that I did this. I know you did. But I did it anyway because that's just, can't help myself. I asked people, hey, what do you think downtown is? And I would gather, yep, my numbers are probably skewed a little bit. However, if you did a scientific poll, I don't think it would come out too much different. I think it'd still be a majority and probably a pretty large majority. But, over 500 people responded that of those three, what did they consider? Or did they consider two or all three? You could answer any of those choices. It just said, when thinking of Corona, downtown Corona and revitalizing downtown Corona, do you think of Historic Civic Center, 6th and Main, City Park? Pick one or more, your choice. 427 people picked 6th and Main, 82%, which is not unexpected. It's what we have said. It's what the public says. In fact, when we talk about downtown revitalization, I will ask, all my colleagues, what do you think, the first question they ask is, what the hell's going on at the mall? And what, people don't ask is, hey, what's going on at City Park, or what's going on at the HCC? Not saying those are any less important, but it's what people, we're talking about priorities and we're talking about what we're going to spend money on. I think if you go back, I think it's slide 26.
Sorry. You keep going? I'm trying to find it for you.
Yeah, I was trying to think. 26, page 26, or slide 26. So, yep.
Yep.
So if you look at that slide, of the $200 million, we're spending 150 of it, 75%. We're spending outside of what residents say is downtown. And I'm not saying that we, in fact, I love the HCC. I think it's a great place. $50 million is a lot of damn money, and I don't know what that would be. I know you guys put some ballpark numbers on it, but I have some concerns, just because that's, people want to see, what we're doing, and if our, looking at the schedule that's been promoted, the first 2 years is going to be, yep, we're going to be doing some work on 6th Street, which is great. I love it. I love the fact. In fact, I wish we would do more, and I've been saying put our foot on the gas to do that stuff. And I know we have a lot of investments that we need to do, and the downtown for infrastructure, both sewer, water, power, all need to be, redone and upgraded, because it hasn't been done since the 1930s. And I think doing some of these things are great. I think all of them are fantastic. I just am worried about the timing, and I'm worried about the investment. In fact, I asked people, when I asked, that question, some of the comments I got about, most of them were centered on, look, these are all important. 6th Street's important, but 6th and Main, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? That focus is glaring. It's a hard one to deny. If someone came to me and said, Wes, tell me what's important on this list. What's 75% more important on this list? And it's not what we've been asking you. I love seeing the interests of the city that are going to be done. I can't wait to see what we're going to do, for our interests on Grand and Main. I think those are really important. I am concerned about us. I know that the CCC is, the sale of the CCC is something I don't think any of us are particularly worried about in any way, shape, or form. However, if you look at the way the CCC is being utilized right now, it's 33,000 square feet, and it's really used about a third of the time. And And I know that there has been some requests to use it, but I know they've been mostly by for-profit folks and other peoples. And we can't get people to come there, and it's a very safe place. We don't have any. The issues there are few and far between. It's a safe place, and we still get people to come there. And I think even if we build, this facility at City Park, that it's going to take a while to get people to come there. And I think spending $100 million all at one time is scary. And I worry about the debt service. $7 million over 30 years, $7 to $8 million over 30 years is a tremendous amount of money, And we have, I go back and look at city budgets from 20 years ago, and you see how they fluctuate based on the economy. And if you look over the history, the first things that get cut is parks. That's why we ended up in the situation that we're in. In fact, the only reason that we even have parks, and most of them are, frankly, in my district, was because the developers paid for them, and it allowed for the decay of City Park because of those things. Because people said, "Oh, great, there's a park there. We don't need to do anything." Mountain Gate Parks, Jameson, Citrus Park, Chase Park, Eagle Glen Park, Spyglass Park, all beautiful parks, all paid for by a developer. That allowed City Park to be ignored. I don't want to ignore City Park, but I also I want to make sure that we're investing in a way that makes sense. That we're giving the folks there something that they can utilize, they can use, and the things that they want. But I'm really hesitant to put that kind of number into one place. That's all I got. Thanks.
Can I ask you a question, Wes?
Sure.
I'm sorry, Mr. Tucker, could you bring up the timeline one more time? If the timeline was kind of flipped and it started at 6th and Main and worked its
100%.
way out, it wouldn't be that big of an issue
Yeah.
for you? Okay. Because do you disagree with and I'm asking because I want to know, do you disagree with the projects?
The only project, well, I disagree with the two most expensive projects.
Beyond that, but I mean the projects themselves, are those the right 9 projects?
I think those 7 projects are solid. 7 of them are solid. I think the last 2, 8 and 9, or last 2, the whatever number they are I think they're. The HCC, I don't know what $50 million. I mean, I didn't get much of an answer when I got back. A culinary arts facility, I don't know if that's going to be a big.
I could build a
big draw.
Kitchen.
But yeah, and I haven't heard any plan for how, one of the things that we asked for a City Park for programming those buildings is even in our own adopted plan. It says that we were going to see a plan for how we were going to program it. How are you going to pay for it? How is it going to be programmed? The investment, I forgot the term that was in there. We haven't seen that yet either. So I frankly don't know. I mean, I think 7 of those I feel great about. The HCC, I even though, like I said, love the place, I don't know if I want to put $50 million into it. And City Park, I still haven't seen that we need a $100 million facility.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Wes. Jackie, have you been doing any unscientific polls?
No. I'm at my capacity currently. Thank you very much for this presentation, Mr. Tucker. Thanks to staff for getting us here and for us having this conversation. And I want to do a special shout out actually to our previous council colleagues, because I think that we're able to have this conversation because of financial stewardship from the council before us. And we've done really good things with the reserves that were in place. but they were in place because of the previous financial stewardship. So special shout out there. It's a big deal because I often, having a conversation about the downtown and having a conversation with residents or with other elected officials, especially for Corona residents, it's a touchy subject. It's a very visceral. You get visceral reactions from folks when you talk about Corona and downtown. What they identify as a downtown, it doesn't matter. It's a touchy subject. We all feel very strongly about the fact that it needs to have more attention paid to it, and more needs to be done. And the difficult part I find as a policymaker is that we have different tools that we can use for these different areas. So, for instance, I will get comments from residents who are like, "What's going on with the mall?" And I'm like, listen, we don't own the whole mall. Like, we're not a developer. As much as I, am told, just do this, just do that. And, if our country ran the way some other countries, maybe we could, but that's not the way it works here. And so we're kind of stuck with what we can do with the mall. That being said, there are tools that I feel like we haven't used, and I really am looking forward to us. I advocate wholeheartedly for us to approach the mall and 6th and Main specifically with as bold and holistic an approach as possible, because the visions that we've had, while great, have not come to fruition. So we need to try something else. That whole definition of insanity, right? Like, it's not working for us to say, let's rely on solely on private investment, or navigate as comprehensive of an MOU as we possibly can and hope for the best. It's not working. So I say, and come back to the frustration of the conversation of the downtown, because it's not everyone understands what tools we have at our disposal. So that's 6th and Main. But then we have other catalyst projects on this list where we have total and complete control, like 6th Street, the 6th City Park, and 6th Street Median, Historic Civic Center. The city owns that. It is the residents' public asset. And through A, B, and C different reasons, there has been neglect for City Park. And it's now at the level where it's at. But I'm not willing or ready to discount that park and what it can do for the entire downtown area. And in particular, an aquatic center, something that our community needs and hasn't had for years, and definitely hasn't had, to the level that I think we deserve. So, we find ourselves here today having this discussion, and it's been a slow build, but it hasn't been a surprise. We started with a strategic plan. This council was very intentional. It actually started, what was it? Was it 19 when we started the process of the strategic plan? Was it right after Mr. LSU came on board? And again, to Mr. Speak's point, downtown and addressing downtown was right up there. What it means to people it can mean different things. But addressing the downtown in our strategic plan was called out right away. And there was a lot of public comment to get us to our strategic plan. And I think one of the things that we're doing really, really well as a city is actually implementing a strategic plan, is actually putting every element of it into our work plans, into staff's daily work plans, and reaching our milestones. This is a living, breathing document, and we've agreed as a collective that these are the things that are very important to us. And so we're reaching this conversation today not as a surprise. We're having this conversation today about implementation of a downtown revitalization plan because we identified it in our strategic plan. We also had a very comprehensive downtown revitalization plan with public comments. So there have been intentional steps to get us here. Now, we can always do better with communication. We can always do better. And I think that it's really important, especially for something this big, to get as much communication, as much outreach as possible, because we want everyone on board for this big, bold next step for our city. So I would love to find more ways to get, the businesses along 6th Street, the community who, maybe submitted their names or emails when we were doing public comment for the strat plan, for the DRP, specifically. You showed interest in this, come and continue the conversation. Ultimately, though, coming back to this DRP and the ask today, I think this whole package is really the way to go. The 9 projects are the way to go. Because we have different tools at our disposal, because we can do more with some and not with others, but I think collectively it gets us to where we're trying to go as a city. And I don't really think of this as an either-or discussion. I don't see one project taking from another. I don't see investing in one and doing so boldly makes another one weaker. I think this is more a conversation about whether or not we are going to finally do the thing that we say we're going to do and make the change and stop hoping that it gets done. Our efforts so far, while you wanted to see our efforts so far, while again commendable, they just haven't come to fruition. And it was called out. It's because we haven't necessarily had a specific financial plan on how to make it happen. So I'm glad that we're doing that now. There are some things that I'd like to see more of. For instance, the facade improvement grants for 6th Street businesses. I'd like to see more of that. A second round, because again, I think that sometimes these P3 partnerships, this public-private partnership, really takes the public side to kind of spur it sometimes, right? Especially in places where there hasn't been investment in so long. It's also very clear to me that we need to take a more active role in the North Mall, a more holistic and active role in how we're acquiring those properties and what we're going to do next with them. So to get back to your asks about the projects, I think all 9 of them are needed. I think they're all necessary, and I don't think they take from each other. I think, in fact, by doing all 9, we're actually headed in the right direction. The funding plan is bold, and I understand how that is scary. And I by no means am a reckless person. But I think this is one of those calculated risks that we owe it to ourselves to take. It's okay to pass the ball to where you're going. It's okay to go in that direction and bet on yourselves. And as for the timeline, I also don't think that this is doable within 5 to 7 years. And it's not because I'm a cynic. I want to believe, but the one thing that I think our community can't take more of is heartbreak when it comes to expectations of the downtown. So I think we need to be really, really careful about the expectations that we're setting out for our community, because this is so visceral, because it's so personal. We can't say that in 7 years this is going to be done and we don't come through. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. You forgot to mention we can walk down the street and chew bubble gum at the same time. Steiner.
Thank you. When did we get started?
As soon as you give us the green light.
All right. So look, citizens and business owners, myself, we've been complaining for decades. The 6th Street corridor, 6th and Main, City Park, literally, everybody's been complaining for decades about it. I consider, from my house, I consider the 6th Street corridor downtown. Of course, 6th and Main is the core, it's common sense, but I consider the entire 6th Street corridor downtown. I consider Tom living in downtown. Since 1986, there have been 20 city council elections and 8 different city managers that have worked for Corona. And as mentioned, for a variety of reasons, not one of those council manager teams have been able to do virtually anything in nearly 40 years. So my question to Mr. Ellis is, can we continue providing critical services to our community while maintaining a competitively paid workforce if we go with the accelerated plan on all 9 projects?
Yes.
Then I support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. When cities were being built in California, when westward expansion was happening, city locations were picked. A lot of it was because of where water was. And Corona was no exception. When they started the city, they put a well right at 6th and Main. And that's where you get the downtown, is where that well is. I'm hoping you guys find it. And if you look at where people built their houses on Ramona Street and Victoria Street, people tried to build their houses as close to the well as possible because it was a hike to the water. So everything blossomed from 6th and Main Street, and that's where you get the downtown. I was having a conversation with Jackie a month or so ago, and we were talking about geniuses. And we were talking about Einstein and Benjamin Franklin and Steve Jobs. And Jackie made the point, well, yeah, they're all geniuses, but there's so many geniuses that nobody knows about. And I couldn't stop thinking about that, so I started looking into what separates the legend geniuses from the normal geniuses. And it's vision. And it's the ability of Einstein and Franklin and Jobs to capture creativity and to go along with imagination and to propel it and to have vision. I'm saying vision twice on purpose. It's vision that causes your downtown to be revitalized. It's creativity. All 9 of these projects show genius, every 9 of them, but it shows more genius when you build them at the same time. It shows that you're going to have a revitalized downtown. It shows that you're going to stimulate. It's going to prove that success builds success. Success breeds success. If anyone's nervous, they should be. That's part of it. That's great, actually. You should be nervous. There should be a tension because that's when you know you're doing it right. You have members of the Chamber of Commerce here today, and if any of those own businesses are going to tell you, you have to have tension, you have to have vision, you have to have nights where you don't sleep because you're worried about payroll coming up. I don't think we're to that level of fear here. I went through that fear with my business, but if you're not pushing boundaries, if you don't have a vision, if you don't put a schedule together, then you're not going to do it. It'll never happen. I truly believe that we have the right city management team. I believe we have the right city council, and I believe we have the right amount of money to do this. In fact, looking at the graphs, I think we could spend more money, to be honest with you, but I don't want to give Wes a heart attack. So we need to go full forward, all 9 projects, add a few more to it, and let's finish this downtown. So I think I think you got your green light.
Thank you.
Oh. Here's your direction. You got your green light.
Thank you for the direction, Mayor.
I thought you were going to speak, Jacob. Okay. That's it, everybody. Thank you for coming, and we will see you here in a couple hours, and the meeting's over.